I'm glad that you joined us here today. My name is Andrew, by the way, if you're here for the very first time. I'm the campus pastor here at Faith Moncks Corner, and I'm glad that you have joined us here this morning. It's actually a little bit cooler outside. That's pretty good, right? We got out this morning, and my 3-year-old gets out, and he says, "Daddy, I'm cold. I need a jacket." I said, "Son, we know that you've grown up here your whole life, but this is cold. This feels really good, but it ain't that cold outside." He was ready to go. He's ready to pull the heavy coat on, man. It was freezing for him. I'm glad it's got a little bit cooler out there. I'm excited for this new series we're starting today. All throughout the month of October, we're going to be in a series called Strategy for the Struggle. And this is going to be a series you want to be here. If you can't be here, you need to listen to the podcast every week. You're not going to want to miss what's happening in this series. I would bring people to church during this month especially. You never know, man. Let's be praying for folks that God would soften their hearts. I think what's going to take place every week, the kind of teaching we're going to be bringing, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're at on the spiritual spectrum. You could be a follower of Christ for years. You could be somebody who doesn't have a clue about God. I'm telling you, what we're going to get into every week will speak to them right where they're at. It's really important. And so I'm excited to jump into that here this morning. How many of you guys have siblings? You got brothers and sisters, that kind of thing? Y'all got a whole bunch? Okay, good. A lot of hands went up first service. You guys were not competitive at all, I'm sure, growing up, right? Everything went pretty well. I think you loved each other and you were perfect, and yeah. So I'm the oldest of 3 brothers. I always think, and I never miss that moment. If you're a mom in the room and you got 3 boys, there's a special place in heaven for you, because you know that, man, with 3 boys, you can't have the house you want till the last one's 21, right? Because you can't have nice things. Nothing's ever in place. My mother was sad to see us go, but she was kind of glad because she got every piece of furniture she ever wanted. It only took her, 30-something years to get there. Boys just destroy stuff. So there's 3 of us in the house. There's 15 months difference between me and the next oldest, the middle child. And so because of that, everything was uber competitive. There's a lot of parity between us as well because we're kind of close in age. Everything was a competition. We just stomped on each other. We wanted to make sure that we came out on top. Didn't matter what it was, getting dressed for school, playing ball, doesn't matter. It was all a competition. The Bullard way, in case you don't know, and you may not because you aren't Bullards, but the Bullard way is you stomp on your opponent in the ground and you come out on top, because we don't want second place. Second place is the first to lose. You walk around with a little silver medal, you're like, "Ooh, I came in second." What you're telling everybody is, "I was the first to lose. Isn't it great?" No, it ain't great at all. We want to win. And in the process, you take your brother out. Now that I'm married, it's my spouse. Shayna and I are cutthroat when we play games. I could lose the game, but as long as I beat her, I'm happy. So, it's the same way now. But anyway, it was a lot of parity. Well, the youngest was 6 years younger than me. And so he always wanted to keep up with us. And so a good brothers, what they would have done is they would have said, "Hey, you want to play ball? No problem. Here's the tee. All right, come out. You want to, here, we'll lower the basketball goal for you so you can keep up and play." Good brothers would have done that. We were not those brothers. We were merciless to him. And I take credit. He will dispute this, but I take credit for his development and character and athleticism. He was definitely head and shoulders. Athletically, he's the best of the 3. And for those of you who don't know, my middle brother played professional baseball, so he is the best of the 3. He's the most athletic, the youngest one is. And I take credit because we toughened him up, man. You got to keep up with us, okay? But here's the thing. I don't remember what I was playing the day that he finally beat me, I can't remember if it was ball or a game or whatever it was, but I remember the feeling that I had. So I remember we were gathered around, and I could tell for the first time my youngest brother was going to beat me at something. Now, when we compete, we trash talk and we gloat and all those types of things. I did not want to be the guy who ate crow and had to deal with all that. I never dealt with that. And as we got kind of towards the end of what we were doing, I remember being overcome with this feeling of, how do I handle this and what do I do? I had a strategy for always winning, but I never had a strategy for losing. I didn't know what that was like to him. And so, of course, I lost, and he talked all the trash in the world and gloated, and it was great, and I had to be on the other end of that, and that was a little weird for me. But listen, I thought this week, I was like, isn't that like life? Like, we go through life with strategies for winning, goals and dreams and achievements and all types of things we want to get to, and we have all kinds of plans in place to win. But many of us do not have a plan or strategy in place for losing. We don't even think about it. We don't have a strategy in place for losing, and the problem with that is this. That means we don't have a strategy for the struggle. You're going to encounter struggles. What's your strategy when you encounter the struggle? How do you react when things don't go your way, or they don't go the way that you planned them to go, or they don't happen in the time frame that you thought they would happen in? If you don't have a plan or a strategy for the struggle, you will not react well when those things begin to happen. It's really not a matter of if you're going to struggle. It's just a matter of when. It's when we're going to struggle. We're all going to struggle. We're all going to go through that. In fact, Jesus is talking to his followers. He turns to his students in John 16, and he says, in this life, you will have many troubles and many trials, many struggles. You're going to have a lot of those things. I think sometimes we look at the Christian life and we think, man, the moment that I say yes to Jesus and I follow him, my life will be amazing. It'll be wonderful. Unicorns and bunnies and Care Bears and everything you could think. It's all going to be great, but it's the opposite. Jesus promises struggle is going to come your way. Struggle is bound to come, but then he puts a great piece of good news out there. He's like, but that's all right, because I've overcome the world. So you're going to go through struggle. You're going to face it, but don't worry. I've overcome the world. I've already sealed the victory. You've got something right here waiting for you on the other side of the struggle. I'm already preaching, and I'm not even through my intro yet. This is good. Here's the thing about the struggle. It's not out there, right? And I think oftentimes we think the struggle is out there. It's in my job, it's in my marriage, my kids, my whatever. It's always out there. I want to just submit to you this morning, the struggle is not out there. The struggle is in here. It's always in here. Always has been in here. What happens when you go through the struggle is you begin to second guess everything, right? Not out there, you're second guessing everything in here. Okay, did I hear from God? Did I really hear from him? Where is God anyway? He should be right here. He's kind of MIA right now in my struggle that I have. Am I going down the right path? Should I have taken a different path and made a different decision? Is there an exit ramp somewhere I can get off at? I've prayed and I've fasted and I've gone to church. I've done all the spiritual things to do, and I'm still in this struggle, right? It's all in here. It all has to do with what's going on in our heart, in our minds. It all has to do with the inner man, right? And so over the next few weeks, what we're going to do is we're going to unpack the struggle, the strategy for the struggle, and we're going to unpack all of this using the example of a man named Joseph. If you're familiar with Joseph, great. You should be getting excited for where we're going. If you don't know Joseph or his story, let me just kind of set all this up for you. Joseph, his story takes place in the first book of the Bible, a book called Genesis. And at the end of that book is where you really see his story come into the picture. Joseph is somebody whose life epitomized having a strategy in the midst of the struggle. His whole life was dealt with that. I mean, up and down, up and down. What you're going to see over the next few weeks, if you've never heard the story or it's been a while, it'll blow your mind. Like Joseph, one thing after another for this guy. But he had a strategy. And so we're gonna pick up this morning in the middle of his story. It's in Genesis chapter 41. And I just kind of want to set up because we're going to come right in the middle. And you might be like, what in the world's going on here? Genesis 41, what's happening is Joseph has been a prisoner in an Egyptian cell for a few years now. And what's happening for Joseph is Pharaoh has some dreams. And they're nightmarish dreams, and Pharaoh just can't seem to figure out what's going on with the dream and what they mean. And so what happens is he calls in his officials. Can you interpret the dream? None of them can. And there's one particular official whom was in prison with Joseph. And he remembered, hey, this guy has the ability to interpret dreams. You want me to bring him out? Yeah, go get him. So Joseph comes out of prison, and he tells Pharaoh the dreams, and he tells Pharaoh what he should do. And basically, Pharaoh is so in awe that he looks at Joseph and says, hey, you've got the plan. You know how to make it work. You become my right-hand man. That's what we're going to read about here in Genesis 41, verse number 37. Genesis chapter 41, verse number 37. Here we go. If you don't have a Bible, you can follow on the screen with us. Joseph's suggestions were well received by Pharaoh and his officials. So Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone else like this man who so obviously filled the Spirit of God? And then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you, clearly nobody else is as intelligent or wise as you are. You'll be in charge of my court, and all my people will take orders from you, and only I, sitting on the throne, will have a rank higher than yours. Father, we love you this morning, man, and we thank you for your goodness and your grace. And Lord, I pray today that you will really speak to our hearts and our lives. Help us to understand we've got to have a strategy for the struggle today. Lord, I pray that we would be open and receptive to the challenge you might give to us, to the work you want to do inside of us to stretch us and to mold us. Lord, I pray today more than anything that our ears and our hearts are open to your Spirit. May we receive what you have for us today. We pray this in your name. Amen. All right, so pretty sweet deal. Imagine President Trump comes in. He's like, hey, you got some great ideas. Sounds good. Why don't you be president? Why don't you just run the whole country, and I'll just have the ability to say you're fired. You know, I'm pretty good at that. I had a show, you know, like I can do that kind of thing. That'd be pretty cool. Like you're able to lead the entire nation. That's what Joseph gets. Joseph is in charge of all of Egypt. Only Pharaoh is higher than he is. Now, this is a long time in the making, a long time coming here for Joseph. I said it was the middle of his story. His story begins in the beginning of Genesis, in the end of Genesis, the beginning of chapter 37. And so we read that Joseph is the favorite of 12 sons that a man named Jacob had. Now, if you're a parent in the room here this morning, hopefully you don't have favorites. I've got multiple kids. I love them both. I just have a hard time. But maybe you're here and you're like, yeah, I got favorite. I tell my kid, you're the favorite. You're okay. You know, like maybe that's what you do. I don't know. If you do, please don't tell your kids that, right? But Jacob had favorite, and Joseph was it. He gave Joseph a special coat. We don't know if it had many colors or what. It was a special coat. That's all that matters, and it stood out. It became the symbol of the favoritism that his father showed to him. The favor wasn't in the coat. It was really in the man, but it became a symbol, nevertheless, of the favor that Jacob had for his son, and it caught the ire of his brothers. So around that time, Joseph begins having dreams. He's about 16 years old, and this takes place, and he begins having dreams, and in the dreams, he sees all of his family members bowing down to him. You know, he's got a pretty high rank or position of leadership. What we read in Genesis 41 is the beginning of those dreams being fulfilled. They're 16 years in the making. And this is a little extra, but we live in a world where everything has to be now. I download my app right now. I could get McDonald's right now. I get whatever I want right now. It's all instant. And when God speaks a dream to us or God speaks something to our lives, we often, because we're in that kind of culture, we think it has to happen now. And so if God hadn't moved in 30 days, we're like, all right, we missed the boat somewhere. What did we do wrong? It took Joseph 16 years. You hear me? 16 years. God spoke a dream to your life. God whispers something to your heart. Can I tell you, it all happens in God's time. Don't give up. Don't get discouraged. It will happen. If God said it, it will be. Just hold on and wait. It's coming. It's coming. And so Joseph, 16 years later, gets that dream and begins to find fulfillment. Now, he makes a mistake. He tells his brothers and family and everybody about the dreams that he had. A lot of scholars will say, hey, he was kind of arrogant. He was acting in a lot of pride when he was telling those dreams. That was kind of what he was, kind of really the impetus for that. And can I just tell you this morning, be careful who you share God-given dreams with. Not everybody needs to hear them, because not everybody can hear them. Not everybody has the fortitude to accept it. And there are dream killers out there who've been hurt and scarred and wounded, and they're vicious, and they would love nothing more than to take the dream and smash it to pieces. You got to be careful about who you share those things to. Joseph ends up sharing it to everybody. One day his brothers are way out in the countryside. They got all their father's herds, and they were not the best men. If you read more around Genesis 37, you read about his brothers, and they did some pretty rough things, man. And so his father's like, hey, Joseph, go out there, check on your brothers, make sure they're okay, not doing anything stupid. All right, sure. So he goes off. And he goes out there to come back and bring a report to his dad about how things are going. They see him from a distance, and they're like, all right, here he comes. We hate his guts. We don't like him. Let's kill him. That's the plan. Genesis chapter 37, verse 23. Check this out. When Joseph arrived, his brothers ripped off the beautiful robe he was wearing. They grabbed him, and then they threw him into the cistern. Now, the cistern was empty, and there was no water in it. A lot of emotions are flowing through Joseph. He's in that empty, dark, dank cistern, right? But the most damaging emotion he's experiencing here is hurt. He's experiencing a lot of hurt. Think about it for a moment. He's feeling betrayed. He's feeling abandoned. And it's one thing to feel that way from people you don't know or acquaintances. It's another when your family, your brothers, right, have wounded you like that. Maybe you're here this morning and you have had major conflict with your parents or your brothers or sisters, and you have been deeply scarred and wounded. I think wounds from family, they go the deepest and they linger the longest and they hurt the most because they're the closest to us. His own family leaves him in the cistern. And one of the major struggles that we face, and one of the first ones we've got to deal with, I think, is the struggle of hurt. We face the struggle of hurt quite often in our lives. All of us are going to get hurt at some point or another. Hurt brings a lot of heaviness. And I don't really know this morning what your hurt is. I don't know what people have done to you or said about you. But if you're experiencing hurt on any level in your life today, you have to deal with this in a very healthy manner. And you got to resolve it. You got to deal with hurt in a healthy manner, and you have to resolve it. If you don't, hurt will progress and evolve and take you on what I can call as a emotional death spiral. It'll take you on that ride down. Some of you have been on that and you're out. Some of you this morning, you're right there today. You've been taken on that wild ride and you're in your own pit. And you feel the hurt and you feel the pain and you feel that anguish in your life. And here's the thing when we're hurt. How we feel when we get hurt is we often express our feelings in anger. Our sensitivity goes up, our radar goes up, and we express that hurt by being angry. And when we're angry, here's the thing, we're jaded and frustrated. And we're offended at every little thing that comes our way. Our culture is an angry culture right now. Why? Because if we got down to the nitty-gritty of it, there are multiple sections in our society that have been deeply hurt. So everybody is offended at every blessed thing today because we're all angry. The whole world's angry right now. 9 times out of 10, when people are angry, they're not angry for the reason that they give you. I don't know if you know that or not. Oftentimes, we react to the anger that we're experiencing from that person, and we don't think to kind of pry a little bit and, hey, why don't you tell me what this is really about? Why are you really upset? What's really going on? Like, we don't do that. We just react to that anger, and we get more angry, and it just nothing gets better, right? But the reality is, 9 times out of 10, somebody is angry not for the reason they're giving you. It goes back to an unresolved hurt that they're still carrying around and they're still wounded from. If you don't deal with anger, what will happen is that anger will lead to bitterness. And bitterness is really deadly. That scripture describes bitterness really like this. There's 2 important elements to it. It describes bitterness as a root. And that means two things, two key things about bitterness this morning. One, if it's a root, it goes deep. It goes real deep, and it stays. Think about a tree and the big tap roots those big oak trees have and how deep they go down, how strong those trees are because the tap root goes so far into the ground. There are people who will carry around bitterness for years and years and years because it goes deep. And here's the second thing about bitterness, it becomes a stronghold. And that stronghold is not so easily shaken and broken. So you'll have people who will walk around and they'll pretend everything's fine. They wear that mask on. They go to the job, go to Walmart, go to church. Everything's fine. It's all good. How you doing? It's great. It's fine. Oh, it's wonderful, Really, everything isn't fine. Nobody else knows that. Your family knows that because your family's closest to you. You can't fool them. They know something's not right. They know, hey, for 20 years, you hadn't gotten over this, and it's affected how you think and where you live and what you do. They know that. But nobody else does. And so you walk around with this mask, everything's fine, everything's good, it's okay. Really, though, bitterness has a grip on your life. You're enslaved to it. You're in the bottom of a pit, and you can't get out. It owns you. And if you're not careful, it'll rob you of your joy. It'll put up a wall between you and the person you're bitter at, so that every time you see their picture, you see them in town, you hear their name, whatever it is, you tense up. And you get these negative emotions. And all of a sudden, you get angry again. And all that flares back up because you haven't really gotten over it. You haven't really dealt with the problem. Maybe you had a surface level, hey, let's forgive each other, move on. But you didn't deal with the problem, so you're still bitter, and you're still angry, and you're still a prisoner to it. It's the final stage of bitterness that can lead to a hardened heart. And that hardened heart affects all of your emotions. And so if you don't deal with hurt and it's unresolved, it'll lead to that. But hurt goes beyond just how you feel. Hurt also goes into how you live your life. Hurt goes into how you live your life, especially in regards to people. God wired us to be people with passion, okay? We're people with a lot of passion and drive. Here's the thing. You ever been in a place where you were physically you were present, okay? You were at work, you were at school, you were at in church, somewhere. You were physically present, but you weren't all there. Mentally, you weren't there. You were checked out because you were checked out into the struggle that you're going through. You're checked out into the hurt you're experiencing. You're not really there. Your mind, emotion is somewhere else. That's because your passion is gone. And when your passion is gone, guess what? Your purpose will go with it. Because the way that God wired you, your passion and purpose are intricately linked together. They go hand in hand. If I lose one, I lose the other. And so if you don't have passion, your purpose begins to go. And if I don't have passion, guess what else I don't have? I don't have compassion. Compassion is my ability to love people. And if I have unresolved hurt, I can't love people. You ever been around somebody who's angry? And have you seen them show compassion? I hadn't. And when I'm angry, I don't have the ability to show compassion. You lose that ability to truly love individuals. And oftentimes people who might have been full of life and love and happiness, and years later, they're just grouches, man. They're just they're angry. They're super cynical all the time. The reason why is because they have unresolved hurt that has robbed their ability to truly love. They might be nice, they might be polite, but they're not really loving. It's all surface level. And if I can't be compassionate, there's something else that happens. If bitterness gets that big root inside of me and I can't be compassionate, well, guess what? It also means I cannot be gracious. And you cannot have a relationship, marriage, parent relationship, friendship. You cannot have a relationship with people and not have grace. If you don't have the ability to forgive somebody, that relationship's over. It won't work. There's always going to be conflict. There's always going to be issues that have to be resolved and talked about. If you can't dispense grace, it's over. So if I don't have grace, I can't forgive, and I can't walk in that ability to forgive people no matter what comes my way. In fact, here's the thing: if I don't have grace, here's a great sign this morning. If you're somebody who's lost your ability to forgive and have grace, if people have to step on eggshells around you, and you know what that's like, I got to spell that out. Like, you know what that looks like. If everybody tiptoes around you and they're all afraid that what they might say or do will get you angry, you're somebody who has lost an ability to dispense grace and forgive. You're somebody whose life is enslaved to anger and bitterness because there is unresolved hurt you have not dealt with. It's an unhealthy place to be. So what's the strategy to get out? What is the strategy for getting out of that struggle with hurt? Well, here's what we have to do. We got to trust and submit to God. You got to trust and submit to God. You want to get out? You got to trust God. Our instinct when we're hurt is to pull away. It's to fight for control, to hold on. It's to let our voices be heard. Have you ever noticed the loudest voices in the room, the most critical voices in the room are the people who really carry around unresolved hurts? Or the people who want everybody else to be as miserable and cynical as they are? It's people who carry around unresolved hurt. What gives us the most freedom and what has to be part of our strategy in the struggle is we have to trust and submit to God. The struggle of hurt, it'll cause you to carry around a lot of things you shouldn't be carrying really in the first place. And here's the thing this morning: if you want to overcome that struggle of hurt, this is very important and very key. You must give up your right to stay hurt. You got to give that up. Now this is important, and I don't want to underplay this. Because there are a lot of people, and there might be folks in the room today, they hold on to their hurt because they want to justify their actions and words they say and things they want to justify the wrong type of life. Well, I can do this because they did that to me. I can say this because she hurt me. I can live this way because of what these people did to me. They justify it. It's a crutch they hold on to. But if you want to heal and you want to get over it and you want to move on and get out of the pit, you have to give up the right to stay hurt. I'm a follower of Christ. I don't stay hurt. I give it up. Hey, God, take it from me. Heal me. Forgive me. I'm surrendering it to God so I can get out of the pit and move on. I'm not going to stay bitter or angry or jealous, or I'm not going to do those things. It's a lot easier said than done, by the way, which is why so many folks still hold on to it. You got to let it go. You got to learn to yield and submit yourself to God and know when and how to do it. Thankfully, there are no roundabouts in the town of Moncks Corner. You guys been down to Charleston or Somerville and see all the new developments and all the stinking roundabouts that keep getting put in there? Hey, there's a couple of things about roundabouts here this morning that you should know. Number one, nobody knows how to drive in a roundabout. You ever notice that? Nobody knows how to do it. Everybody's sitting there. Do I go? Do I stop? Is it a yield? What do I do with that? Nobody knows what to do in a roundabout. Nobody knows how to drive in a roundabout. I do. None of y'all do. But I do because I've done it successfully, right? No one knows. And you have to learn, when do I yield to another car and how do I get in there? And what makes it worse is if all the cars from Ohio are in the roundabout and they don't put a turn signal on, and so you don't know when you should go in and out. And if you're from Ohio this morning, we love you. But anyway, so it's crazy. Nobody likes them. Nobody knows how to drive in them, but you got to figure out when to surrender to the next car. Hey, can I tell you this morning, nobody likes pain, and nobody wants to get hurt, and we all wish it wouldn't happen. But we have to learn, when we do get hurt, how and when we surrender and yield ourselves over to God so He can heal us and forgive us and get us out of the pit that we're in. We have to learn how to do that. And that means giving everything over to the Lord. And as we submit ourselves to God, here's the thing. The psalmist says this, as we submit ourselves to God, that he orders the steps of the righteous. So God orders every one of our steps. Now, that the reality means this, that if he orders our steps, he's also going to lead us into a place of struggle. Why would God spare us if he didn't spare the most amazing person on the planet? I mean, like, he led those steps to a place of anguish and pain and betrayal on the cross. He ordered his steps there. And if he didn't spare his own son from pain and hurt and the struggle, why would he spare us? We're going to go through it. We're going to experience pain. We're going to experience struggle. We know that's going to be a part of life. How come we don't trust God more often then? Because we'll talk about it. We'll talk about, you got to trust God. You got to trust God, man. Yeah, I'm doing it. Yeah. We talk about it. We don't actually do it. Here's why. Because we want control, right? Look, I volunteer to drive all the time. I want to drive everywhere we go. I want to do it. Why? Because if I drive, I'm in control. I'm going, a little over the speed limit. I got to be honest this morning. I go a little over the speed limit. I cannot stand to get on the highway when someone's driving and we're going 45 and everyone's doing 80. Come on, let's hurry up, I want that. I will make sure that I stay away from the crazy cars on the highway. It's all about me. If anything's going to happen, it's because I did it. But if you were in the car, ain't no way. If something happens to me because you drove, dude, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want that. And I think the reason here, it comes back to control, because here's the thing. I think this. We want to be our own cause of victory and failure because we don't want to be the result of somebody else's mistake. And we'll often put God into somebody else. Now, we won't ever admit to that, but we do. And we know that if we let God take control, we'll be okay. But the problem is just so hard. I'm responsible for me. Come on, I can do this. And God's like, nah, bro, let me just slide over. Can I tell you that God should always be in the driver's seat? And by the way, you're not his co-pilot. I hate that bumper sticker. You are not God's, you're the passenger. God drives the car. God drives the bus. You go along for the ride. You are not up there with him. He takes control. That is yielding and surrendering your life over to him. And if you can do that, you can overcome the struggle. Psalm 23 has this great progression, and I got to hurry a little bit up because of time, so I'm not going to get to all of Psalm 23 here today, but there's a great progression that the author has when we encounter and trust in God. In the very first verse, he says, hey, the Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. God is your shepherd. He's in control. I have all that I need. What does that tell me? That if I don't have something I think I should have, I don't really need it. Because God's going to make sure I don't lack for anything. I've got everything that I need. Man, I love that. I love it because God will always come through. For time's sake, we'll skip down to verse 4. But verse number 4, look at this. The shepherd is leading us. And we read this, that even when I walk through the darkest valley, the shepherd's leading us. I'm walking through a valley on my own. No. The shepherd's leading me into the dark valley. You understand this morning, right? I'm not going to be afraid. You're close beside me. Your rod and staff protect and comfort me. As I trust and submit to God, he's going to lead me in a dark valley. That sounds reprehensible. Why is a good God, a loving God, and a gracious God going to lead me to a place of struggle and darkness? And if I go further, I read that he leads me to my enemies. Why would he do that? Because God's supposed to be on, like my side and be good. Why would he do that? There's a lot of reasons why, and I can't get into that today. But can I tell you this morning? If he's the shepherd and you're the sheep, you ever seen a sheep argue with a shepherd? It's like, hey, let's go this way. I see the grass really is greener over here. Let's go over that side right there. It's fine. No, the sheep follows everywhere the shepherd goes. Why? The shepherd has cared for the sheep and protected the sheep and provided for the sheep. He's healed the sheep. The shepherd is the most trusted figure in the sheep's life. Everywhere he goes, the sheep will follow. So he leads us to that dark valley, that place of struggle. And here's the cool thing now. Even though I get to a place, and verse 5 talks a lot about this, where I'm in front of my enemy, and God prepares a celebration feast. Here's the cool thing about this. I go through a dark valley, I get to where my enemies are, but the celebration and the feast that's there can only mean one thing, that there's victory. There's a guarantee of victory. That if I'm following God in a dark valley and I'm following God through the struggle, I can be okay. On the other side is a victory for me. And I just got to stay on the path and follow my shepherd. And I have victory. I'm preaching better than we were sounding here this morning. Just because you overcome the struggle and have victory in your life does not mean that you will not be wounded. Because you will experience wounds and you will experience hurt. And we talked a lot about that here today, that you can't leave those hurts unresolved. So what does the shepherd do? Well, in Psalm 23, we read this. The shepherd anoints the sheep. He anoints his head with oil, and his cup overflows. Now, this is important because sheep, just like any other animal, they are prone to parasites. I've got a golden retriever at home. Always have to check him for ticks and parasites, particularly around his ears. If you're a pet owner, like you get that, you understand that, right? And so sheep, they lice and ticks and all kinds of things would be, there were parasites sucking the life out of the sheep. So the oil was poured over their head. Why? Because it brought healing to the sheep's wounds from those parasitic life suckers, and it protected the sheep as well from future attacks. In the Old Testament, oil is symbolic of God's Spirit. So what is the psalmist saying? That what God does is he puts his Spirit in your life to heal you of your wounds that you get in the struggle of hurt, and he protects you from further struggle down the road. That's what happens to you. And because God doesn't give you the bare minimum, he always gives you more. Your cup overflows. In my struggle of hurt, as I'm in the dark cistern, I'm in the valley, and I'm in the pit, there is that promise that I can lean into God who's my shepherd, and I can lack for nothing, and I can find rest in him, and I can have victory over my struggles, and I will have more than enough. He'll protect me, and here's the great thing, it will never end. Look at the last verse, verse number 6. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me, what? All the days of my life. And I'll live in the house of the Lord. And if you know it, say it with me here together. Forever. Forever. Not next week. Not 3 years from now. Forever. Promise forever. Jenna, come on up. What if in the middle of the hurt, in the valley, and the broken dreams and doubts, you trusted the good shepherd to lead you? What if we stopped resisting God and we stopped trying to overcome the struggle ourselves and we really started trying to trust God this morning? What we find in Joseph's life, and you're going to see over the coming weeks, it is full of many, many struggles. Joseph overcomes one struggle. He thinks he's out of the pit. Everything's good, only to find out, hey, you're being sold as a slave. He adjusts to life as a slave. Everything's going okay, only to find out, hey, you're going to jail. It's just one thing after another. If that's your life, that's your season, and you've just had that kind of experience, you can relate to Joseph pretty well. It's full of struggle. But what you're going to see is through the pain and the struggle and the heartache, what God was really doing is he was writing a story of salvation and redemption, not only for Joseph, but for his entire family and entire nation. And can I tell you this morning that God wants to do the same for your story? If you're in the struggle of hurt, in the pit, in the valley, the cistern, what's your strategy to get out? Because see, being angry is not a strategy. Being bitter is not a strategy today. Avoiding people is not a strategy. Pretending like nothing happened is not a strategy. Avenging the pain that you're experiencing, that is not a strategy. You will only find yourself sinking further and further into that cistern, unable to get out. What you really want, whether you want to admit this or talk about it or not, what you really want when you get down to it is you want that passion back. You want to live for something again. What you really want is the compassion back to love people again, to trust people again, to have joy again. What you really want is to have someone lead your life in the right direction. So here's your strategy for the struggle of hurt today. Trust and surrender your life to God. Let him get you out of that pit. Let him bring healing to your life. Let him bring protection to your life. And let him restore the passion and that love and that grace again. Because only God can lead you out of that miry, dark